All right, everybody, I'm going to show you how to make some features off of a curved surface that are attached to the curved surface in Onshape. So we're going to start with a sketch. I'm going to sketch on the front plane. I'm sketching on the front plane because it'll give me, it'll put me perfectly perpendicular to the surface. And that'll give me, or normal might be better name for that, and it'll give me room to work there. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to establish my distance that the object is from the surface. That'll be what I do here, and then I'm going to make another sketch to actually do the extrusion. So the object I'm doing is somewhat rectangular, so I'm going to do the rectangle in just a second. But before I do that, I'm going to choose this intersection, or you could also use the use feature. And my goal when I'm doing the use feature is I'm selecting parts that I want to include in my sketch. If I don't click on these parts, then they're not going to be something that I can use to attach to in my sketch. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice there's a line that was made here now that's in the sketch. If I turn the part off, there's that line right there. Okay. If I wanted to use other features, like if I wanted to use this feature up here, I could click on that, and that would now also show up in the sketch. Okay. I'm not going to need that one, but it's okay if it's still there. All right, so now I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm creating a rectangle because the feature I'm going to make is somewhat rectangular, and I'm going to give it the dimensions that it needs. So this is going to be 0.15 up there, and then the height is going to be 0.75. Then I also want to establish the distance that this thing is from either, some sort of reference point. I'm going to choose from this point to this point. I want to establish that distance to be 0.425. Okay, so now that I have that, it looks like I could still do some movements here. Trying to see what I can still move. Oh yeah, that, because it's not attached. All right, so one thing I want to do is make sure that this and this are coincident with each other. There we go. That'll make it a lot better. So now it's all black, which means I can't move it, which is a good thing because I want it to be exactly right there. All right, so I'm going to hit check mark. Okay, now, if you think of it this way, I have a cylinder here. If I extrude this, and I'm going to use a little bit of an exaggeration, but if I extrude that sketch right there, I'll do it symmetrical so you can have an idea. All right, notice that there is going to be, it's not going to let me add, I'll put new just so we can see that feature. See, there's a gap between that surface right there and my curved surface. All right, so if I hit check mark, for instance, all right, there's a gap between those surfaces. And if I don't want that gap, then that way I just did that is not going to help. Now, I could maybe come in here and extrude that surface to the face of this, and then that would be enough. But if I make this extrusion smaller, like it would have been in my original design, like 0.15 inches, for instance, I don't have a lot of room to figure out to get back in between my cylinder and my new sketch in order to connect those surfaces. So it's going to be a lot easier if I create a separate sketch and then extrude that one instead. So I'm going to delete this one. I don't really want that. What I want to do is I want to create a plane that goes perpendicular to the sketch that I just made. So to do that, I am going to go to the plane tool, which is this one right here, and I'm going to make a plane. It's going to be called plane point is the selection I'm going to make. And what it does is ask you for a plane basically to be parallel to. So I'm going to be parallel to the right plane. And then it needs to know a point that I want this plane to go through, which I would like it to go through that point right there. So now that I choose that, Now I have a plane going right perpendicular to that sketch I just made, which is what I wanted. So I'll hit a check mark. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new sketch, and it might help if I turn off my top, front, and right planes, because now I can only see that plane. Start a sketch on this plane right here, and I'm going to view normal to that plane, zoom in, oops, and now I'm going to make my rectangle, and I'm going to choose a center point rectangle because I should be able to lock into the center of this. Yep, right there. And then if I go up to that point right there first and then over, it's going to try to lock into there as well. So it's kind of a little advantage. And then I need to make this 0.15 wide. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. The width is supposed to be 0.15. And then this dimension should be, I'm just going to get rid of it, 0.75. Okay, you can see it's over dimension, so I'm going to see if I can delete that dimension. Yeah, that's what I needed to do because it was already locked into the midpoints and everything anyway, so I really just needed to give the width of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude that, and it's going to go back towards my object. I want it to be an add because I want it to add on to the object. And the other thing I want to do is I want to choose, instead of blind and making it go in, a certain amount, what I want to do is do up to face, and then I'm going to click on the face of the cylinder. And so now it's going all the way up to the face. It's going to include the little bit of curve that's there. And that's going to be perfect. So I'm going to hit check mark. And now I have exactly what I wanted. All right. Now, if I want to make that a little bit more rounded of an object, then I can go in and I can do a fillet. Maybe I could fillet like that edge, that edge. If I'm going to do that, I need to make sure I'm choosing a fillet that makes sense. So like 0.05 might work, for instance. All right, so that rounds it off a little bit. If I feel like there's something else I need to add, like maybe a chamfer on this edge, then I could do a chamfer on that edge. Again, it's not going to be a big distance. Let me try 0.15 and see what happens. Yeah, it's not going to be good enough. 0.05. Yep, so that chamfered that a little bit. Yeah, maybe that's not the chamfer that I wanted or that was needed, but that just kind of gives you an idea of what you can do. All right. So from there, you should, if you need to make multiples of those, you should be able to run a 3D feature. And that's in a different video that I've already produced.